pay for stopping my parents' mortgage after they forced me to eat alone? My name is Valeria, I am 30 years old, and I am a nurse in the emergency room of a large hospital in Mexico City. At the end of November, I had to work a double shift. I left the hospital physically exhausted, but with one fixed idea: to get to the family gathering at my parents' house, sit with them for a while, and for once feel that not everything in my life was work and exhaustion. I never imagined that that night they were going to turn me away from the table, that I was going to spend it alone, and that the next day I would write a message that would change everything. My dad Arturo is 58 years old. He worked his whole life in construction, one of those men who wake up early, return late, and never complain even if everything hurts. Last November on a construction site, he slipped on a scaffold, took a bad fall, and shattered the ligaments in his right arm. Medical care covered a part, but you know how it is. They help you with the bare minimum, and you end up paying the rest however you can. Then came the hard part: surgery, rehabilitation, medicines, transportation, and 3 months of therapy that felt like an eternity. Even so, my dad's arm was never the same again. He could no longer lift more than about 22 pounds without severe pain. He couldn't do the repetitive movements his job demanded. His boss was understanding, but he was also realistic. In construction, there are no easy positions for someone with an arm like that. One day they simply stopped calling him. My dad found a part-time job as a security guard at a public elementary school. Sometimes they gave him 25 hours a week, sometimes less. In terms of money, it was a brutal drop. Before the accident, he brought home between 55,000 and 70,000 pesos a month. Now with luck, he earned 8,000. My mom, Carmen, worked part-time at a supermarket and brought in another 9,000 or 10,000 pesos. Between the two of them, they barely scraped together enough for the basics. The problem was the house. My parents have a 3-bedroom house in Naucalpan. A beautiful house, the kind many people worked themselves to the bone for years to afford. Their mortgage was around 28,000 pesos a month. When my dad's income plummeted, that figure became a brick wall. At first they had a little cushion, some savings, but between what medical care didn't cover, the medicines, and the rehab, that money kept draining away, and then they started falling behind on payments. 3 months after my dad started as a guard, my parents called us for a family meeting. It was a Sunday in March. My sister Mariana arrived with her husband Diego and their 2 kids, Mateo, who was 6 at the time, and Sofia, who had just turned 4. Mariana is 32, 2 years older than me. For as long as I can remember, she has been my mom's favorite. It is not something anyone has told me. It is something you notice in every detail. Diego works in IT for a big company, one of those with offices in Santa Fe. He earns well. They never lack anything. We sat around the dining room table. My dad was uncomfortable. He kept rubbing his injured arm, as if he were ashamed to be there asking for help. My mom was doing that "I am not crying" thing, but her voice was breaking anyway. "We have to talk about the house," she said. And then she let out the phrase that made my heart sink. "We are 3 months behind on the mortgage." Another letter from the bank arrived. Mariana reacted immediately, as if she already had her speech prepared. "I would like to help, but with the kids' school and everything, we just cannot right now." I was this close to saying something because Diego has always been supported by his parents. I know that. His dad has several auto repair shops, and when they bought their house, they gave them the down payment, and they also pay for the kids' private school, one of those that costs as much as a second rent. But it doesn't matter. Mariana gets defensive about that. She gets mad, yells, and says it is nobody's business what Diego's family does or doesn't do. My dad looked at me with tired eyes, as if it even hurt him to ask. "Valeria," he said, "you don't have kids, you don't have a husband, your job pays decently. Do you think you could help us out for a while? Just until I find something better, or we see what we can do." I stayed quiet. What was I going to say? No? "How much do you need?" I asked. My mom took a deep breath. "About 23,000 pesos a month. That almost covers the mortgage. We will figure out the rest. The electricity, the water, the groceries." I earned well for my age, yes, but it wasn't a fortune. In a normal month, after rent, transportation, and expenses, I had something like 18,000 or 20,000 pesos left to live on. If I gave them 23,000, My finances would be stretched to the limit. Still, I did the math in my head. If I picked up more shifts, if I worked doubles, if I worked weekends, I could do it. Okay, I said. But it is temporary. Yes, just until we get settled. Of course, sweetie, my mom said and reached out to squeeze my hand. Just until your dad gets back on his feet. That was a year ago. A whole year of practically living at the hospital, of working double shifts nearly every week, of walking around with swollen feet, an aching body, and a head full of fog. There were weeks when I put in 60 hours, others where I hit 70. I didn't even know what day it was anymore. In August, I wanted to take a vacation, just a few days, but I canceled because my mom said something had broken in the house and they needed money to fix it. First, my parents were grateful. Every month when I made the transfer, my mom would call me. Thank you, sweetie, you are a blessing. I don't know what we would do without you. My dad would get sentimental too. I am going to pay you back for everything, Valeria. Just as soon as I get settled. But after a few months, those calls stopped. The gratitude faded away, as if my help had become an expectation, as if the money were a given. Then something worse happened. They stopped thanking me and started demanding. If I was 2 days late, my mom would already be calling. What happened to the transfer? Did you do it yet? Not even a, how are you? Not an, are you okay? Nothing. Meanwhile, my life was falling apart. I drove a 2015 Honda with almost 290,000 kilometers on it. The AC barely worked. It made a weird sound when I braked, and I had been driving for months with a dashboard light on that I avoided looking at, as if ignoring it would make it go away. I wanted to replace it, look for a used one, get a small loan, but every extra peso went to my parents' house. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. It is not luxurious, but it is mine. The problem is I barely ever stepped foot in it. I only came home to sleep and shower. Many nights I would leave the hospital at 11 p.m., get home around midnight, eat something fast and fall into bed dead tired. By 7 a.m. I was already back at it. My coworkers started to notice. My boss, Gabriella, pulled me aside a week before everything happened. You look terrible, Valeria, she told me straight up. You are exhausted. Is everything okay? Do you need to talk to someone? I smiled as best I could. I am fine. I just need the money right now. The worst part was seeing Mariana at family dinners. They had just bought a new SUV. Diego had gotten a promotion, and they were already talking about putting a pool in the backyard like it was nothing. Mariana uploaded pictures of outings, dinners, and trips, of Sophia's dance classes and Mateo's soccer team. I genuinely wanted to be happy for them, and in a way I was, but it also hurt because I was counting pennies, checking my bank account every day, calculating how many extra shifts I needed to make enough for everything, for my own life and for my parents' house. Then late November rolled around again. I was destroyed. I was coming off a heavy double shift. I had clocked in at 7 a.m. the day before and left at 11 p.m. 16 hours straight of patients, notes, running around, calls, and demanding relatives, and I had barely sat down at all. I slept a few hours and went straight back. The only good thing was that I didn't have to go back to work until the next day at noon. I could finally go see my family, stay the afternoon and evening, sleep in my old room if I wanted, and feel at home. I arrived around 4:30. It was rush hour and the traffic was horrible, but I was happy even though my eyes felt heavy. When I parked, I saw several cars. Mariana's white SUV, Diego's black car, and two others I recognized. One belonged to Diego's parents, Alejandro and Rosa. The other belonged to Lucia, Diego's sister, and her husband Javier. I had met them at Mariana and Diego's wedding 3 years ago, and had seen them many times since at birthdays and gatherings. I grabbed my backpack with clean clothes. I was in my uniform and felt dirty, sticky, and tired, but I was excited. From outside I could hear laughter, voices, that sound of a full house that always makes me smile, even just a little. I rang the doorbell instead of using my key because there were guests. My mom opened the door and her expression changed strangely, like surprise, yes, but not a happy one, more like annoyance. Valeria, she said, what are you doing here? I stared at her, confused. It is the family gathering, Mom. I always come. I thought you would expect me. But I thought you were going to be working, she said. You are always working. I don't go in until tomorrow at noon. I already got off. I brought clothes to change into. I wanted to shower here and hang out with everyone for a bit. My mom shifted uncomfortably. Well, honestly, we weren't expecting you. It hurt, but I went in anyway because how could I not? They are my family. I walked in and saw everyone in the living room. Mariana with Diego and the kids, Alejandro and Rosa sitting on the couch as if they owned the place. Lucia and Javier standing near the window with glasses in their hands, chatting happily. Mateo and Sofia, now older, were on their tablets. Mateo was 7 and Sofia was 5. I raised my hand trying to sound normal. Hi. I felt awful in my uniform with my hair tied back and my tired face, but I smiled anyway. Are you guys about to eat? I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. The only thing I grabbed was some cookies from the vending machine. My mom didn't smile. We are almost sitting down, she said. And then with a strange tone she added, but there is a problem. I turned toward the dining room. The table was set beautifully. Tablecloth, plates, glasses, napkins. The kitchen smelled like freshly made food, rice and something baking in the oven. I counted the place settings. 10. Then I counted the people. My mom, my dad, Mariana, Diego, Mateo, Sofia, Alejandro, Rosa, Lucia and Javier. 10 plus me, 11. I froze. Where do I sit? I asked before I could stop myself. My mom looked at my dad. My dad looked down. Then my mom looked back at me. Well, there is no room anymore, she said. The table is for the guests and honestly, we didn't think you were going to come. I felt an empty pit in my stomach. What do you mean you didn't think I was going to come? I always come, I never miss it. Mariana let out a short laugh, as if I were exaggerating. It is just that you are always stuck in the hospital, she said. We figured you wouldn't make it again. I took a deep breath, trying not to cry right there in front of everyone. I arranged my schedule for this, I said. I wanted to be with you guys. My mom lifted her chin and her voice turned colder than ever. Well, it cannot be helped now. You are not needed here. If you want to eat, serve yourself a plate and take it to your room, or eat in the kitchen. I stood there. For a second I thought I had misheard. That woman, the same one who raised me, the same one whose house I had been keeping afloat for a year, was telling me that I wasn't needed, that I should eat alone while she attended to Diego's family. Mariana laughed. Louder this time. Well, if you didn't arrive so late, Valeria, they wouldn't have taken your spot, she said. But you always arrive late because of your work. Late. I was coming off 16 hours straight in the ER, working to pay the mortgage on that house. And then the most humiliating thing happened. Diego laughed. Alejandro too. As if they were in on the joke. Mariana was laughing with delight. Rosa smiled with a nervous laugh, the kind where you don't know where to look. Lucia looked at Javier uncomfortably, and Javier just looked down. The kids started laughing too because they heard the adults, and right there I understood. I was no longer family. I was the one who paid. I was useful for my money, not for sitting with them. I wasn't needed. I grabbed my backpack and walked toward the door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody said, wait. Nobody said, sorry. Nobody said, let's see, we will squeeze in a chair. Nothing. They were already moving on to their own things, Alejandro asking about soccer, Rosa saying the table looked beautiful. I got into my car and left. I got to my apartment and realized something even sadder. I had no food. I had planned to have dinner with my family. I made instant soup and sat at my little table, looking out at the parking lot with the silence weighing on me, trying to understand what had just happened. My cell phone just sat there completely silent. Not a single call. Not one message. Nothing asking where I was, nothing saying, did you get home okay? Nothing. They probably didn't even notice I left until someone asked for more napkins or the kids wanted dessert. Around 7 p.m. there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a second I got my hopes up that it was my parents coming to apologize, but no, it was Mrs. Lee, my neighbor from across the hall. She is about 75 years old. She came to Mexico years ago. She speaks Spanish with an accent, but you can understand her perfectly. I sometimes help her with health stuff. I check her blood pressure, test her sugar, and give her insulin when her hands shake from joint pain. She always wants to pay me, and I never accept it. That night she was wearing a nice dress, as if it were a special day for her too. She was holding a covered plate, still warm, and had a worried look on her face. "Valeria," she told me softly, "everyone gets together with family today, right? I made extra food. I thought maybe you didn't get to have dinner." I was speechless. A person who barely knew me had thought of me. "How sweet of you," I said, and I felt my voice breaking. "Thank you." She handed me the plate. "You work hard at the hospital. You have to eat well, right? Not just little soups," she said and looked at me fondly. When she left, I closed the door and stood there with the plate in my hands. And that was when I broke down. I cried like I hadn't cried in months. It wasn't just a single tear. I sobbed with my whole body. I felt grateful, and at the same time it made me furious because a neighbor treated me better in 5 minutes than my own family had in a year. I ate what Mrs. Lee brought me. It was so good. Real food made with care. Then I went to sleep. I slept 10 hours straight, something that hadn't happened to me in a long time. Friday morning I woke up and the first thing I did was grab my cell phone. It was still silent. Not my mom, not my dad, not Mariana, nothing. I made coffee and sat down to think, with a much clearer head now. A year of killing myself working, of canceling vacations, of driving a car that was begging to be retired, of living day to day so my parents wouldn't lose the house. And for what? To be humiliated in front of people I have known for years, to be told I am not needed. Right then I made the decision. I opened my banking app and found the automatic transfers I had set up. One for 23,000 pesos a month for the mortgage, and another for 6,000 for household expenses. I canceled them. Then I wrote a message to my mom. I finally understood that I am not needed in this family. As of today, I am no longer paying the mortgage or expenses. Don't look for me. I don't want to stay in touch. I sent it without thinking too much about it because if I thought about it, I would change my mind. Then I blocked their numbers. My mom's, my dad's, Mariana's, Diego's. I also blocked them on social media, on WhatsApp, on everything. I didn't want to hear excuses, I didn't want manipulation, I didn't want a fake apology. And the strange thing is that after doing it, I felt relief, as if I had lifted something incredibly heavy off my shoulders. I made myself a proper breakfast, eggs, bread, some bacon. Simple things, but they were for me. At noon I went to my shift, and for the first time in months going to the hospital didn't weigh on me. On the contrary, it felt like a break because nobody treated me like a walking wallet. During some free time, I went to look for the nursing coordinator, Mr. Vargas. I knocked on the door. "Come in, Valeria," he said. "How was the family gathering?" "Good, thank you. That is exactly why I'm here. Starting next month, I am not going to be able to keep taking so many extra shifts." He looked at me surprised. "Really? You have been grabbing everything that opens up for almost a year." "My personal situation has changed," I said. "I no longer need the extra income." The coordinator leaned back in his chair. "I am going to put it to you like this, you were working too much. It is going to do you good to go back to a normal schedule." I felt like crying, but out of relief. No more working double shifts like it was a punishment. No more living off cookies and coffee. No more coming home and falling asleep without remembering what day it was. That day was one of the best shifts I had had in months. I had energy. I was able to talk to patients calmly. I even joked around with my coworkers. Gabriela told me, "You look like yourself again." 2 days passed. It was Sunday afternoon. I was about to go to sleep when I heard yelling outside my building. I looked out the window and saw my parents in the parking lot next to their car. That weekend was when the big monthly payment was due. I knew that. That is why they arrived like that. Desperate. My dad was waving his arms nervously. My mom was crying. I went down. As soon as she saw me, my mom approached. "Valeria, please," she said. "We have been looking for you for 2 days." "I blocked you," I said calmly. My dad jumped into the conversation, red with anger. "How could you stop the mortgage payments? We are going to lose the house." I looked at him without raising my voice. "You should have thought about that before telling me I wasn't needed and sending me to eat alone." My dad opened his hands as if I were being unfair. "We were playing. It was a joke. You cannot take a joke." I looked him straight in the eye. 16 hours straight of work, I said. "That is what I worked that day. Do you know how many extra shifts I put in last month alone just so you could afford it?" They went blank as if they had no idea. You don't even know, I said. Because you never asked, you just expected the money to appear. My mom wiped her face, her voice trembling. I am sorry, Valeria, I crossed the line. I shouldn't have told you that. And then, without dropping the subject, but we really cannot handle the house without your help. Then you should have treated me like family, not like a bank, I said. I turned around and walked back into the building. I left them there talking loudly. I didn't even want to listen anymore. When I got upstairs, I felt proud. For the first time in months. About an hour later, I got a call from an unknown number. I was this close to not answering, but curiosity won. Valeria. It was Mariana's voice. She was furious. Mom and Dad called me crying. What is wrong with you? What is your problem? I have no problem, I said. I just decided to stop being the family bank. They are going to lose the house because of you. No, if they lose the house, it is because they cannot pay for it. That is not my responsibility. Of course it is your responsibility. They are your family. I laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. Family. Like when they sent me to eat alone and told me I wasn't needed. Mariana was quiet for 2 seconds. It was a joke. You are exaggerating. You are taking it too personally. I cried alone in my apartment, I told her. I ate instant soup for dinner while you guys ate with Diego's family. Tell me again where the funny part is. Mariana scoffed. Mom is having panic attacks. You have to keep paying. Then you help them, I said. I can't. I have 2 kids. And a husband who earns well and in-laws who support you, I replied. You can. You just don't want to. Fair, I said, losing my patience. Fair is me killing myself working for a year while you buy a new SUV and plan a pool. I took a deep breath. I am done, Mariana. I hung up and blocked that number too. The following days were a parade of phone calls. Relatives I barely saw appeared out of nowhere to scold me. WhatsApp messages, calls from numbers I didn't have saved, an aunt saying that family is sacred, a cousin leaving a voice note about shame, an uncle sending a long text message about how selfish I was. I listened to it all and blocked it all, and one thing became very clear to me. There were plenty of them to point fingers at me, but not one to chip in a single peso. Meanwhile, my life started improving almost immediately. By stopping the double shifts, I got my breath back. I had time to go to the grocery store. I cooked real food, I cleaned my apartment like I hadn't in months. I even went to the movies with Gabriella, my boss, on a quiet afternoon, the first outing like that in over a year. And the best part, I had enough money again. After the first paycheck following the canceled transfers, I had about 25,000 pesos left over after paying my own expenses. I hadn't seen that in my account since before my dad's accident. With that peace of mind, I did something I had been dreaming of for months. I went to look at cars. I found a used 2019 Honda Civic with around 56,000 kilometers, clean, well kept, with all its paperwork in order. The monthly payment was manageable. Now that I wasn't supporting my parents' house, they checked my credit history, and it was good. I had never fallen behind on anything. I drove out of there and felt freedom. A car that didn't rattle, didn't smell weird, didn't make me think every day about how much the next breakdown was going to cost me. The next day I asked for the day off from work, not because of illness but to breathe. I went driving aimlessly, listening to music, as if I were remembering who I was. 3 months after cutting off the money, my mom showed up at the hospital. She didn't sneak in maliciously. She asked for me as a visitor and waited for me in the cafeteria, just as I was going out to get water on my break. She sat across from me without asking. Valeria, please, she said. The bank already sent another warning. We are 3 months behind. I kept eating, not out of spite, but because I no longer had the urge to rush and fix her life. That is not my problem anymore, I told her. But we are family. I looked at her. Family like when you abandoned me at that family gathering. My mom started crying. We made a mistake. Yes, I am sorry, but you cannot let us lose the house over one ugly night. It wasn't one night, I told her. It was a year. A year of giving and you guys seeing it as normal. And then the humiliation in front of everyone. My mom wiped her face. I didn't mean to say that, Valeria. You did say it, I replied. And it was the truth. To you all, I wasn't needed as a person, only for my money. I stood up. My mom grabbed my arm. I am begging you. I looked down and felt nothing. No guilt, no desire to fix it, nothing. And that, even if it sounds harsh, was liberating. Ask Mariana for help, I told her. And I left. 6 months later, I found out through a relative I hadn't blocked yet that my parents sold the house and moved to a smaller 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of the metropolitan area. Mariana never offered to pay their mortgage. She said she couldn't because of the kids' expenses, but I knew she could. She just didn't want to. While they were downsizing, Mariana and Diego went to the beach for a week and flaunted it on social media like it was nothing. Didn't surprise me. Mariana was always good at spending other people's money, but not her own. 2 weeks ago, I got a letter in my mailbox with no return address. It was a handwritten note from my mom. It said they had lost the house because of me, that everything was my fault, that I had destroyed the family, that I was selfish, cold, heartless, and that she hoped I was happy with what I did. I read it once and threw it away. The truth is, I am happy. I work a normal schedule. I pick up extra shifts when I want to, not because I am being squeezed dry. Next month I am going to the beach for a full week. I haven't done that in over 2 years. I bought new clothes, got a haircut, started working out again, and I am seeing someone. His name is Nicholas. He is a physical therapist at the hospital. He is calm, attentive. We have been dating for 3 months and he doesn't know all the drama because I don't live in that anymore. I don't want my life to be about them. My life is my own again. I have savings. I sleep. I no longer walk around like a zombie. I am no longer scared to open my banking app. Most importantly, I learned that being family doesn't give anyone the right to use you and treat you poorly. I thought I was going to miss them, but no. People who truly love me wouldn't have done what they did to me. Mrs. Lee still brings me food from time to time and asks me how my day was. My hospital coworkers invite me to birthdays. Nicholas shows up with little gifts and truly listens to me when I talk about my work. They are the ones who matter, not the ones who only loved me for my monthly transfer. Comment. I want to take a moment to share my thoughts on the incredible healing journey we just listened to together. Setting boundaries with the people closest to us is often the hardest thing to do, but it is deeply necessary for our mental well-being. Being part of a family should always involve mutual respect and care, rather than just fulfilling financial expectations. Walking away from toxic situations is not an act of selfishness. It is a courageous step toward protecting your inner peace. True kindness often appears in the most unexpected places, reminding us that family is also the community of people who genuinely value and support us. When we stop exhausting ourselves for those who take our sacrifices for granted, we finally make room to nurture our own lives. Healing begins the moment we realize our worth is not measured by what we can provide for others. I hope this reflection inspires you to evaluate your own relationships and ensure you are being treated with the love you deserve. You have every right to prioritize your health, set healthy boundaries, and choose the path that brings you true happiness. Please remember to be kind to yourselves today, and always surround yourselves with people who appreciate your presence. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.